Divorce happens. In fact, it happens to almost 50% of first marriages. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Divorce Happens, a podcast to educate, inspire, support, and yes, make you laugh through divorce and beyond so that you can start fresh on the next phase of your journey. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh.
You get divorced. You get divorced.
Getting divorced?
I'm getting a divorce.
You're getting a divorce.
Because she's getting a divorce.
So what if I get divorced?
Hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, a little bit of laughter. Because as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And we're here with one of our Fresh Starts experts who, much like many of our experts, is a multi-hyphenated expert and does so many things. And so we had Angela on, and we'll have her come back on again to talk about her day job, which is professional organizing. But also, she does a lot of things. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself and then talk about something which is an incredibly important conversation today.
Well, thank you for having me, Olivia. Yes, my name's Angela O'Brien. I'm a professional organizer. I'm also an Enneagram coach. And I host a podcast called Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms. And the reason I do that is because I have a 21-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. I've been an advocate for the disability community pretty much since she was born. And not then, but once I got my footing, I started to become an advocate. And so I really am trying to help out other families of kids with special needs. And so I'm just glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, and first of all, your daughter is I love watching her on social media. And I loved celebrating via social media her 21st birthday. So that was very exciting for sharing all of that. Okay, so one of the things I think people don't realize is that the divorce rate for special needs families is generally higher than the regular divorce rate. So just to refresh people's memories, typically in families in America, the divorce rate is about 50% for first marriages between 48 and 50. It goes up to about 63 to 67% for second marriages, and it goes up even higher for third marriages. So that's pretty high. And then we're talking about some, a special needs family, the rate's a little bit higher. And yet we're not really talking about what happens in special needs families when there is a divorce, which is the second biggest life transition a family can go through. So I wanted to bring you in here today, Angela, to talk really about things to consider as a special needs parent when you're also considering divorce. Because when we started talking about this off record, my mind was blown with the things that I didn't even know you needed to talk about. So I'm going to let you take the stage here. And so if you're a special needs parent and you're listening to this and you're also considering divorce, what would be some things that you really need to start making note of before you meet with that lawyer?
Absolutely, yes. So I think there are a few things. First of all, I think it's really critical to start to think about who you want on your team. And the people that you want on your team helping you are people that have experience dealing with families of kids with special needs. So that would include perhaps a divorce lawyer that has dealt with other families who have special needs kids, because they can think about some of the considerations that you wouldn't necessarily think if you were a typical family with typically developing kids. The other thing is that you would probably want to incorporate a special needs financial planner, because, and this is where we've dealt with a special needs financial planner ourselves, because there are so many things to think about. If you have a child, especially like mine, who has a lifelong disability, you have to think about their care and how you can support them in their care financially, emotionally, mentally, all of that. And a lot of that requires a lot of very specific trusts and wording in trusts and things to think about so that your children don't get denied their government benefits that are applicable for people with disabilities. And then I also recommend that you start thinking about the types of documents that you want to gather. Obviously, for anyone getting ready to start a divorce, you want to think about all of your financial documents, your budgeting, your expenses, all of those. But you also want to start gathering documents that will explain your child's diagnosis. So that includes education documents. if they have what's called a 504 or an IEP, an individualized education plan, all of that you'll want to start to gather, preferably digitally, so that you can, send that to the
Yeah.
people that will require it. But that's really critical, because what's unique about going through a divorce when you have a child with special needs, especially one that will carry on beyond the age of 18, you have to think about whether or not you want to consider guardianship for your child. That's something that we pursued with our child when she turned 18. We have guardianship. And that was a process for us, and we are not divorced. And
Yeah.
so you really have to start thinking about who will be the guardian of your child and beyond you, but also like how you are going to set that up yourself and
Mm.
the documents required for that. And then finally, just financially thinking about child support, and especially as a stay-at-home mom caring for someone with a disability, maybe you have a child where you have to be their primary caretaker and you are unable to have a full-time job. That those things need to be taken into consideration as you're considering divorce, because you might need lifelong child support. You might need supports beyond the typical amounts. And
Mm.
so yeah, it's a lot to think about, but taking it slow and getting the right people on your team that have experience with working with others with special needs, I think will really, really benefit you in the long run.
I have so many questions. So can you explain for listeners that might be listening that don't know, what is guardianship?
Sure. So guardianship really happens beyond the age of 18, because we already are guardians of our kids, right?
Yep.
Until they turn 18. And so after the age of 18, let's use the example of my daughter. She has a lot of abilities, honestly, but she cannot, she really struggles when it comes to finances. She's unable to drive and get herself to and from places. Um, so there are just certain things that she has challenges in being able to care for herself and hold down a job that will support her
Right.
and live by herself. And so we've made the decision to pursue guardianship. There are different types of guardianship that you can pursue. There's supported decision making. So I'm not telling every family to go and pursue guardianship. There's lots of options.
Mhm.
But if you do pursue guardianship, that is something that would happen at age 18. You usually have to work with a lawyer to be granted. Your child is granted a lawyer, obviously, just to
Yep.
support them, because basically you're suing against your child
Right.
to be able
Continue. Right.
to help take care of them and help make decisions for them. And so all
Right.
of that happens around the age of 18 usually. That's when you want to think about it. And also too, when it comes to medical decisions, you want to be able to help your child make your now adult child make medical decisions. And that's where it really comes into play. I literally have to show my guardianship papers to medical providers, to new medical providers, to demonstrate that I can be a part of their care. So that's
Wow.
why it's really important for that.
Now, that's something that happens when they are, you said, closer to 18, or is that something that is discussed earlier?
Obviously, you probably want to discuss that earlier. We had to think about, you want to probably talk with a lawyer prior, like around the age of 16 or 17, early 17, before you get into it, because by the time they turn 18, you want to have that stuff in place, and it can take a while. For us, it took quite a few number of months actually
Yeah.
to go through the whole process. And so it is really important to start thinking about that probably around the time of 16 or so, and start getting your ducks in
Mm.
a row, and really, reaching out, asking other people in your disability community, who have you used as a lawyer?
Yeah.
How have you gone about it? That's really, I mean, a lot of
Yep.
times other parents are the best resources. So
Yeah. I was
pursuing
gonna
that
say
within
that.
your own
Yeah.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but thinking about it, and you're a happily married couple that both equally took care of your daughter her whole life,
Mhm.
and it was
Mhm.
still took a long
It
time,
was
right?
still
So,
took a while. It was
yeah.
still involved. Yes.
Yeah.
And so
So,
I yeah.
right. So what do you do then? Like, is that, would you say something that, like, let's say your child is 10 and you're getting divorced? Is like maybe saying in the divorce papers or saying to your divorce lawyer, I want in my divorce stipulation that when they turn 16, we need to have a meeting about guardianship. Is that something you've seen people do? Or how do you see people handle it sometimes when it comes to divorcing with a special needs child when they're younger.
Yeah, yeah. I think the important thing is just maybe to have some open communication about that and talking about that because the reality is things can change. Your child can develop to a point where maybe they don't need full guardianship. Maybe they just need supported decision making. So I wouldn't want parents to just automatically say, yes, we're getting divorced. Our child is 10 and we're going to pursue guardianship because that
Right.
might change.
That makes sense.
But having some sort of stipulation that you are going to address that, you're gonna look at it with open eyes
Yep.
and figure out what is best for the child, and if necessary, get other legal or
Right.
financial people involved
Right.
so that, you can make the best decision. But it it does vary, and the laws change too, so that's the other thing we have to consider, right?
Yeah.
Supported decision making was not an option back when my daughter was
Wow.
an infant, and
Okay.
so we
Yeah.
looked into that, we considered that, we decided that that was not right for her. So,
Right.
but really trying to consider the needs of your child around that time, 15, 16, 17, and what that future might look like for them. So,
There's so much to consider. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, but I wanna also say, like, I would imagine if you are in a relationship that is not great and you are a special needs parent, it seems overwhelming to go through all of this, but also it's worth it, right? To be able to be the best parent that you can be in a situation that sometimes it's often easier to be a single parent, right, than it
mhm,
is to be married in a not great marriage. So it may seem like a lot, but it is doable, right? People do this all the time for sure. Um,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah. Is there
And can
any
I say
Yeah.
something about that
Yes.
also?
Yeah.
Just the importance of that, the point that you're trying to make is it's so important because, like, in cases like mine, I want to be around for my daughter. Our kids with special needs and disabilities right now are living healthier, longer lives, and we need to be around to support them for as long as we can. And
Yeah.
and I think divorce takes a lot out of us mentally,
Yeah.
physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
and so we need to be our healthiest versions of ourselves. And if being a single parent means that, then it is worth the effort, the
I love
months
that.
long, years long,
Yeah.
whatever it takes, it is worth the effort to get over to that fresh start, like you
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
I love that, Angela. And going back to what you said before too, finding the lawyers, finding the financial people, you really leaning into, I would say, your Facebook groups, your communities, getting in touch with Angela, people that you're connected to people, right? And you may not think like, oh, I need a divorce lawyer who specifically understands the needs of my family and all these things, but you really do because it's not a traditional divorce in that
Right.
sense. So would you
Absolutely.
say, like, leaning into your community is really the way to go for referrals there?
I would say so. Yes, that's how we have found a lot of our resources. We have a local Down syndrome group, a nonprofit organization that supports families of kids
Mhm,
with
mhm,
Down syndrome. The same can be done for autism or cerebral
mhm,
palsy,
mhm.
physical differences. So leaning into more of those local groups, certainly, I mean, that's the positive of social media. We can use that and reaching out to those local authorities in your area to see who they might recommend and talk to other parents because they're going to give you the real deal. They're going to give you
Yeah,
the real scoop on who's
yeah,
good and who will help you and who is really watching out for the benefit of your kids. So
yeah. Would you say too it's important, especially I'm thinking about custody. I would imagine often, and I don't have a special needs child, so feel free to correct me, but I would imagine that you have circumstances or situations that one parent tends to parent more than the other parent. Would it benefit the parent that it is best that should have custody, we'll say that has best served that child's needs, to start reaching out to the people that have been in their community, like the doctors, the therapists, all these things, and say like, I know sometimes with divorce you can get, letters from these people.
mhm.
Would that be something that might be important to start on that divorce journey if you're aiming for custody?
Absolutely, because I think, those doctors and therapists, they can serve as expert witnesses for your child because, unfortunately, there are probably times where one parent has one idea about the effort of or the extent of that disability where another parent might think, no, that's not, it's not quite to the
Yeah.
extent that they
Yeah.
think. And so you really want to get at the bottom of that and be really honest and realistic about that. And so consulting with doctors, consulting with your therapists that you are meeting with, and really reaching out to them and sharing with them what your concerns are, I think can really help. I mean, whether it is letters or serving as
Yeah.
witnesses, things like that. So absolutely, I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah,
Yeah, and I don't and I you said this before, and this again sounds horrible, but we're just gonna say that money's involved, right?
absolutely.
You're
Right.
talking about money, and if you're talking about maybe I'll have to pay less if I have more custody time or whatever it is, like you're dealing with a child's health and mental health and
Absolutely.
wellness, and so you have to be realistic. Like
Hmm.
I know just in normal divorce cases, there are parents, both sides, mothers and fathers, who aim for custody at a certain percentage because then they don't have to pay as much, right? And
Hmm.
so when you're talking about a child who may be getting benefits from the state for many, many years, and that's money,
Hmm.
right? You want to make sure that everybody's best interests are at
Absolutely.
heart here,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that I think that
Hmm.
that's a conversation that, is important to say out loud because
Hmm. Hmm.
divorce is very financially driven. So,
Yes, it is. Yes. And it's really critical that you think long term about what your child is going to need, or what you are going to need to take if you're going to be their primary caretaker, what you are going to need to take care of them, not just until they're 18, but beyond. And
yeah.
then also setting things up in a way so that when they turn 18, even though they have guardianship, they could have, setting up special needs trusts. Those are absolutely critical so that they are able to access those state and federal
Mm,
benefits, because
mm,
right now, the current standard is that, like, for instance, my daughter, she can't have over $2,000 in assets or income. Otherwise, her benefits get taken away or
mm.
reduced. And
Okay.
that is not a lot, right?
No,
So if
not.
you have anyone that donate, or that, has them in a will, you want to make sure that that
Wow.
is not considered. You want to set up either special needs trust in a first party or third party trust. So I mean, we could talk for
Yeah.
hours
Yeah.
on that. There's
Yeah.
so much information out about that, and it's confusing. I have a master's degree in business, and I still am confused about all of this. We're still working through our own, trying
Yeah.
to get her benefits. It's
Yeah.
it's very, very, can be very overwhelming just in a typical situation. And so,
Yeah.
um, you know, topping on a divorce on top of that it's really important to make sure that people on your team are knowledgeable about all that.
And like you said, to take care of yourself. And so getting a divorce coach
Absolutely.
and getting a therapist and getting
Mhm.
your hype team around you so that you can feel strong so that when it comes to calling the government to talk about your child's benefits, you don't cry on the phone, which is fine to cry on the phone
Exactly.
too. But
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
so getting that and maybe a divorce coach, like you said, who specializes in special needs. This was such a wealth of information. And we're gonna obviously have you back again because this just we could keep talking about this. And I hope it helps alleviate some of the stress for somebody today to listen to some of this. And you can always reach out to Angela. She's just fantastic and always there. Angela, if somebody is listening to this and they are a special needs parent and they're considering divorce, what would be some words of encouragement that you could leave them with?
I would say that if you're a special needs parent, you probably already know how to advocate for your child. And so this is just going to be one more challenge, but you've already put that advocating muscle to work. And so it's possible to get through this. It's a finite amount of time. Obviously, the
Mm,
divorce process will end and you'll get beyond that,
yeah,
and use that advocating voice that you've been doing for your child. You can do it
I
for
love that.
yourself and for you and your child's future. And I think, everybody is capable of that. And again, just getting the right team around, and so that you have the motivation and the strength to continue to do that. But know that it's within yourself. You already have that muscle,
I love that.
developed. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
love that. Thank you so much, Angela.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much. I always love chatting with you,
Me
Olivia.
too.
Thank
Me
you.
too. Thanks. Divorce Happens is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the only divorce registry platform for everything you need to begin again, including home items, hype team, and everything in between. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh. We're here to support you before, during, and after divorce. Head to freshstartsregistry.com for more info.